Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Vantage Points. I am Hisham Al Maligi. We're still learning the system. We're going live every night through election night, covering the elections and other issues that hopefully you find important and informative. With me tonight, also again, is my dear friend Davi Barker. Hey Davi, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Welcome back. You look much better and much younger than yesterday.
Exponential growth. Tomorrow it will be better. Well, Wednesday it will be better.
Awesome. Awesome. You put this in a GIF, like that's an achievement, what you did anyway.
So I got new lighting today and I got new cameras arriving Wednesday.
Awesome. Very well. So, again, we're doing this live stream from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern every night until election night, where I'm going to be live from 8 until I fall asleep, basically. But roughly, let's say, I'll try to stay up until California closes the polls at 12 midnight Eastern, and we'll see what happens. I really don't think we will have results just
because of all of the mail-in ballots and
exactly. I didn't mail mine yet. So many people will be like that, and they will count everyone and they will challenge everyone, so it will take a long time. But anyway, we'll do our best to cover the issues that are important. And today, actually, I was talking to Davi earlier. I realized very late that today is the 19th anniversary of the Patriot Act passing after 9/11 in 2001. And it's known fact now that this bill was written and, for lack of a better term, shelved until some other time. But after 9/11, they brought it down and they passed it, and we are all paying the price for it since then. Basically, my understanding, and I invited, again, very late, a few guests. Hopefully, some of them will be able to join as the show progress. But in a nutshell, and Davi, if you have any information, of course, please correct me, that it allowed the U.S. government, through law enforcement and intelligence, to monitor the communications of even U.S. citizens in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. So the Fourth Amendment states that there should not be, I'm paraphrasing, of course, there should not be intrusion of the privacy of someone without probable cause of suspicion of criminal activity, and a judge must sign the warrant. There must be a warrant signed by a judge, and the warrant specifies where and what are they looking for. So it's not like I have a home phone and a cell phone. You just swoop everything and put it under surveillance. It doesn't mean you can come to my house and to my office and put bugs or whatever. No, it specifies exactly what are you looking for, where are you looking for it, the duration of the time that you're going to do this. It's not open, unlimited access, and also the purpose of it, and a sworn testimony by the law enforcement and signed by a judge.
Yeah, you have to convince a judge that you're likely to find something.
Exactly.
It's also, in a sense, the Patriot Act authorized things that were already happening. So they just sort of admitted suddenly, we have the same coffee mug. But yeah, it's a thing called a roving wiretap, which means that if I get a warrant, this is just one of the many provisions that suddenly became common. But a roving wiretap means if I get a warrant to tap your phone and you call Martha I can now also tap Martha's phone. And if Martha calls Richard, now I can also tap Richard's phone. Richard might have nothing to do with the original warrant whatsoever, but it allowed the authority of a valid warrant to extend out into people that weren't involved in the warrant. The other thing that it does is that they started just sort of sucking up the information. They weren't even necessarily like listening to it now and investigating now. They just collect all of it, and then they use it to retroactively go back and see what they found later when they decide you're interesting.
And that's what they call the metadata. They collect everything and will deal with it later.
Yeah.
Unless they're actively seeking something on someone. One of the best explanations of this whole thing is in the movie about Edward Snowden. There were two movies, not Citizen 4, the other one, I forgot its name.
No, that's the only one I know.
Oh yeah, okay. So there is another one, I believe, the one that I watched. But anyway, in the movie, they talk about reenacting, of course, what Snowden was doing, and that he was shown how, in a matter of the networking that you're talking about, it starts from a potential suspect ending up to his mother-in-law in a village somewhere at the end of the world, who's shopping for some, like, it's the connection is really the amount of information and data and intrusion of the privacy, and of course the violation of the rights of the people is like on a level that is unimaginable. What about the argument, I'm sure you've dealt with it before, that if you have nothing to hide, why do you care?
Well, then let's just get rid of the Fourth Amendment.
Okay.
Why is the Fourth Amendment there? If you have nothing to hide, why do you need a right to, to be secure in your person's paper and effects? Well, was this national security? We're going to be secure in your person's paper and effects. Yeah, if you have the point is you have a right to privacy. It doesn't matter whether or not you have anything to hide. A person has an innate right to have their affairs a matter of their own concern and not of concern to the government, not to be surveilled for things that are nobody's business.
Right. So we'll talk about the difference between a right and a privilege in a minute, but like from a practical sense, why would somebody care about the government listening in to somebody ordering pizza, for example? Why is that a problem?
Because government agents are human beings too, and human beings are susceptible to criminal impulses. And if you give the sort of power to a government agent who might have criminal impulses, there's no proof that he's not going to use it for nefarious intent. It's also been the case that law enforcement officers are sort of, incentivized to get the bust, even when the bust is not necessary. I mean, it is no small affair to be accused of a serious crime. It's not like you get to go to trial and plead your case and now you're innocent and your life goes back to normal. Your life is completely disrupted when you're accused of a serious crime. Even if you're innocent, even if there's like the court system is not perfect. It requires money. It requires time. It's a stress on people's families. People lose their jobs. People's reputations are tarnished. It's not a small matter, right, when you're accused of something false.
And if anybody remembered the movie Enemy of the State, once it's published in the paper, your reputation is tarnished forever, even if they publish like a refutation later or an apology. It's done. The way they do it, unfortunately, the way the system works is your reputation is good.
If that's saying that a lie will circle the globe 3 times before the truth ties its shoes.
Right. So let's talk about the difference between a right and a privilege. You want to take a stab at that?
Oh man, I don't know. When I said rights earlier, I was speaking of the Bill of Rights, and so that's the language of the Constitution, that you have these inalienable rights. I suppose in a strict philosophical sense, I would say inalienable is the thing that is a right, meaning that it is something innate to the human condition, and it can be violated by somebody, but that violation inherently acknowledges that it is a right, right? Murder is wrong because you have a right to life, whereas a privilege is kind of a legal construct that is afforded to some people and not to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the universality of the thing is the thing that makes it a right.
Okay. So the forefathers put it in the...
All four of them.
Yeah. But the language that they used, they invoked God, like it's an alienable right.
Yeah, creator, endowed by
from
our
the
creator.
creator. Yeah. So therefore, it's endowed in you as a human being. Um, and I use the example of, if I have a driveway and I only have one car and my driveway can take two, I can permit you, I can give you the privilege to park in the second spot at part of the time or all of the time, but it's a privilege that I can withdraw at any time. I have the right to park or not park, or allow you to park or not park, because it's mine, it's my right.
Yeah.
But I give you the privilege, and therefore the rights are inalienable when dealing with each other as human beings. For example, the government cannot come and imprison me for no reason. I mean, shouldn't. It happens all over the world, and it happens here, but...
It's an acknowledgement that it's a violation, that it's an injustice.
Exactly.
This is one of the reasons why I find it so frustrating when people say that immigrants don't have constitutional rights. Well, then they're not rights.
Exactly.
like in strict philosophical terms, foreign nationals who aren't even on U.S. soil should have these rights. These rights should be afforded to everyone on the planet, not just the people who have the right birth certificates.
Should be. But I separate, for legal purposes, between U.S. jurisdiction, because the Constitution and the amendments are the law of the land, where I cannot find them, or maybe I'm ignorant, but they're not available any other place. Like, there is no First Amendment in any other country, political entity on.
I'm sure there's some. I'm sure that there are many countries with many constitutions with many things enshrined as rights of some kind or another.
Right.
But yeah, the kind of catch-22 here is that the governments are the ones who have the driveways. And so in a sense, these things are privileges because they do reserve the capacity to take them from us when they see fit.
Exactly. And the system is built, unfortunately, in a way over the years that you assume, like you think that these are privileges that the government is granting you, which is not the case, because in the origin, how the forefathers envisioned, as I learned, that the people represented by the forefathers came together and put the Constitution, which controls the government. So you have the people and the Constitution and then the government.
Yeah, the idea is that it's supposed to be our driveway and we're supposed to be giving the government permission to park in the driveway, but that is unfortunately the way that it works out. And it isn't even the way I think most people even think of it anymore. I think most people think of it the other way around at this point.
Yeah. Does the government allow this? This is the number one thing that goes. It should be allowed, except if it's a crime. If you're taking somebody's rights, then the government interferes.
Yeah.
But that's not.
And so this is kind of the great tragedy of the Patriot Act. I remember it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was on a public bus, and some student left their civics homework on the bus, and I had the opportunity to look at a high school civics assignment.
Okay.
And it literally, it was a unit on the Constitution, and it was these are the Bill of Rights, and one side of the assignment is this is the way the Constitution is and what the rights are, and then the whole second half of the assignment is, and this is how everything changed after 9/11. And so literally public schools are teaching that stuff doesn't really apply anymore because of this.
My goodness. Wow.
And yeah, you have a generation of people that they never were even taught that this was the way that it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
If they do know that, it's because they've found it online, or they've been told by a relative, or they've proactively gone and sought it at some sort of political gathering or whatever. But yeah, the schools don't teach rights anymore, I don't think.
I hope this is a funny story, but 3 or 4 years ago, I had an issue with an NYPD officer who I believed profiled me. Long story short, it was published in the paper and created some buzz and a lot of hate from a lot of people who saw a Muslim and officer and this and that. So
Hate
anyway,
toward you.
yes.
Yeah.
And I received like hate messages and stuff like that. One of them wasn't so much hate. This girl or woman, I don't know her age, but she messaged me on Facebook saying, "Why did you do that? Why didn't you just accept and obey or something to that tune?"
Yeah.
So I looked her profile up, and she's graduated high school of what? James Madison High School. So I replied, "Because the person your high school is named after said so." Oh my God. I mean, that was a good, nice silver lining out of this episode. So, in addition to the Patriot Act, I forgot who was it. I think it was started under Obama, but I'm not sure.
Patriot Act was under Bush. Bush
Right.
W.
The Patriot Act is immediately after 9/11, like 19 years ago today. But this other thing is the National Defense Authorization Act included Section 270, if I remember correctly, which basically allows the president to designate anyone, anywhere, as an enemy combatant, including U.S. citizens, and hold them indefinitely without the right to a lawyer or representation or whatever.
I mean, that's an interesting wrinkle in and of itself, because one of the fun wrinkles of constitutional law is that a standing military is unconstitutional. Right? That's not supposed to be something that we have.
Right.
So with the way that they've gotten around that is the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which means I think it's every 4 years. It might even be every 2 years. But essentially every president and every term, Congress and everybody has to agree to continue the standing army, because it's not supposed to be something we assume is always there. And so they have to reauthorize the military.
Right.
But that's something that is definitely going to pass, because nobody's going to stand up to the military. Nobody's going to return to a constitutional form of national defense. Because that thing is definitely going to pass. Every politician, every congressman who gets his hands on it sees it as an opportunity to chock it full of earmarks and pork spending and funny little things that you wouldn't be able to get to pass it independently. But if you squeeze them into this gigantic bill, maybe you'll get them to pass unscrutinized.
Right.
And so it becomes this big political football every term. And that's why things like that are passed without discussion.
Right, exactly. And it's every president and it's every Congress, regardless of who's the majority or whose party controls the White House.
It's a fight. It's a fight to get your stuff into the bill. And that's the compromise. If we let you put your stuff in the bill, you'll let us put our stuff into the bill. Nobody is saying we shouldn't be conducting law this way.
Exactly. And to confirm what you just said, in an interfaith meeting with a former congressman, at the time he was a sitting congressman, I forgot, about 6, 8, 10 years ago, something like that. So that congressman told us that basically we were talking about the immigration. We were trying to push him on the passing naturalization pathways or whatever. So he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that basically the Republicans are holding this issue hostage in order for the Democrats to give them something else that the Republicans want.
Yeah.
And it's vice versa. They do this all the time. So it's not like that they are 100% against the issue, but they hold it hostage so they can get something else that the Democrats don't want to give them, and vice versa. So
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that the soup is made. You
right.
know, and it's unfortunate. It's like it's watching a room full of unprincipled people argue over a monopoly board without any concern what the rules of monopoly are.
Right. And it's amazing, despite that the Congress overall liking in the polls is about 10%, they get reelected 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You have somebody like Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, who, if the Democrats take the Senate, he will be the majority leader now. He's been the senator since basically 9/11, for 19 years. And many others stay much longer, including, of course, in the House. So, like, people, I guess, I can't believe I'm saying this, but people need to run for office. you know,
Yeah. I mean,
challenge them, give them a run for their money. There is nothing that makes the sitting office holder worry except competition to his own job or her, nothing else.
yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's a really expensive proposition. I mean, it's perhaps easier to do at a local level. I heard somebody say recently that something like 80% of elected sheriffs in the country run uncontested. Like there's things like that where in more local elections, a lot of positions are elected that you wouldn't think of, and they just run uncontested. And so it might be easier to run at that level. But to run a national campaign, I mean, it's outrageously expensive.
I
And
agree.
so it's prohibitive for the majority of people. Third parties have had no success at it because there's this stigma of voting for anything outside the party system. You might have success in the primary process, but even that is an expensive proposition.
But I mean, I understand it's expensive, but look at AOC. She had nowhere near the money that the previous
Yeah.
office holder had. But she did, and congressional district, we're talking about like 800,000 voters or residents of the district.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big office. It's not small. And she won.
So
I mean,
this is kind of a new politics. This is like something that the internet is producing, where there are these like ground swells of viral campaigns that are bigger than the people running the campaigns,
right,
and those can be outrageously successful.
right.
But I'm not really sure anybody has a firm grasp on why they're successful or why, like it's that there are these new tools that younger politicians like AOC are going to have a better sense of how to use, like social media outreach and things like that.
Right.
That older politicians, they just don't understand. They're living in a postage stamp world.
Yes.
So
Yes. And they had the internet explained to them as pipes, basically.
yeah, it's a series of tubes.
Yeah. But speaking about the uncontested run, I'm going to try to make this close. These are the offices for the judges
Mm-hmm.
in Staten Island, where I am, and they are running on the same people: Democrat, Republican, conservative, and I cannot believe this, but he also got the libertarian line. I don't know how.
As a judge,
I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
surprised
yeah,
judges have party affiliations.
yeah, in New York, they have
Oh.
party affiliations. I'm not sure about other states. I assumed it's the same. But I'm sorry, I said this. This person has the Republican, conservative, and libertarian, and Sam's, that's a local party in New York, and the Democrat has the Independence Party with it. In the other judge of the Supreme Court, which is the lowest court, I don't know why they call it Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The lowest court in New York is the
It's a
Supreme
fluke.
Court.
It's a fluke of New York. The appeals court is above the Supreme Court. Yeah.
Right. So you have the same person running Democrat, Republican, and Sam. It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. So I always, with these offices, either uncontested. Yeah, I mean these are also uncontested. So I just write my name in the in the box on the right, which is the write-in box.
Yeah. I've often thought the thing to do would be to run a write-in campaign, meaning like to run a campaign, say I'm running for office, write in my name, but run the campaign nationwide and take whatever office you win in. Like, don't run for any specific office.
Just write my name.
Just write my name wherever you want me to be. I will be the dog catcher of Detroit if that's where I'm elected.
Surprisingly, the for president, write-in does not count in every state. Like,
Yeah,
there are different rules and stuff for a write-in to be like if they win. But smaller offices, yeah, that's what I meant for people to run for smaller offices, because that's what affects your daily life in your locality more, and then you grow from there, and other generation comes after you, and you move on to a higher office, and this way.
I
But
think one
anyway,
of the reasons that campaigns like AOC and other online social media campaigns succeed is because one of the things that they're offering their constituents is the feeling that what you're doing makes a difference. And that's a feature of all social media campaigns, hashtag campaigns. Like they're all of this crowdsourced sort of movement stuff is about giving the user the sensation that their opinion matters,
right,
which is, it's unfortunate, but the political system itself, independently of any sort of social movement, doesn't offer that anymore. Like, nobody feels like they actually have their voice being acknowledged in the mainstream political system. And so
right,
that, I think, is the thing that people want to participate in these sorts of campaigns, is to feel like their voice matters.
right, right, right. Um, so the current contenders to the presidency, I have five of them in New York. Do you know how many do you have where you are?
What do you mean, have in New York?
Like on the ballot in New York, I have
Oh,
five.
like, no, I don't know.
Okay, so I have, of course, Biden, Trump, and Howie Hawkins for the Green Party, Joe Jorgensen for the Libertarian Party, and someone with the name Brock Pierce for the Independence Party.
Brock Pierce, isn't that like the founder of PayPal or something like that? Isn't that, sounds familiar?
I'm not sure.
I've heard that name before. I don't know. I'm not recalling who it is. Vermin Supreme not on the ballot, huh? That's too bad.
Vermin Supreme, yeah. Where is Vermin when you need him?
Yeah. Well, he ran as a libertarian this time around, so he didn't win the primary. So maybe he actually dropped out. I don't know if he's still campaigning.
He's there on social media.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
do you know much about the Green Party candidate? I don't know anything about this guy.
Howie Hawkins is from Syracuse, New York, and he runs for governor and president all the time.
Okay.
Basically, or most of the time. I mean, a good guy, but basically left of the left, socialist, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, is not he's a decent guy, but it's just, as you and me understand, the economic policy is not the right solution. He agrees with us on defining the problem, but then goes to a wrong solution that will end up with the same results or worse from what we have now.
Yeah, I get excited when someone from the left is a firebrand for foreign policy stuff, or is willing to sort of stand up to authoritarianism in general. So, like, it's possible for a left-leaning candidate to excite me if they're focused on the right issues.
Exactly.
And I will even compromise in that department. Like, there are certainly issues to me that are more important than economic issues, where like, if well, I mean, I don't know. There's nobody I'm excited about right now, so this is sort of debating in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
But like Joe Jorgensen, for example, is mostly speaking about economic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's not really doing the firebrand for foreign policy that I like to see,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so that doesn't excite me.
So I guess you're aligning with the forefathers' order of things: life,
Yeah,
liberty, the pursuit of happiness, i.e., economic stuff.
yeah. Economic stuff is third tier. It really is, and I
Right.
understand that it's important, but it's a long term proposition.
Right.
So
And
like
survival is more important.
if you said to me, if you had a candidate who said, I'm going to stop killing people abroad and I'm going to stop killing people at home, but I'm also going to raise your taxes 10%. I'm going to be like, I don't like 10% taxes, but murder's bad. So that would be okay with me.
Yeah, murder bad indeed. No, I completely agreed. And that's why I think the last one who was that firebrand was Dennis Kucinich. And I
Yeah,
don't think
sure.
we've seen anyone after him on that same level.
No.
You know,
Even like Bernie Sanders is soft on this stuff. He mostly is talking about left-wing economics. Like he'll maybe occasionally make a good statement on foreign policy, but it doesn't seem like it's the issue that is important to him.
right. I don't think he made any significant foreign policy contribution except on the issue of Palestine Israel, which is huge.
Yeah.
For the first time in an American presidential debate, you say Palestinians have rights. They're human beings. They're equal to the Israelis. That's huge.
Yeah,
And
sure.
he needs to be praised for that. Like he did something good. At the same time, and like his economic policy was basically left of the left, which defines the problem correctly, but ascribe the wrong solution to it, which might end up being worse than the current situation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people don't understand this. They look under their feet, for lack of a better term. We have this proverb: you're looking under your feet. You're not looking long term. You want a solution now. You want to fix things now. You want infusion of money now. Okay, but what happens? Where's this money coming from that you want now?
Yeah.
So I mean, the solution
Well, that's the
cannot be
thing. It's the politics of desperation. Left-wing economics is the economics of desperation. It's to say that we are in such an extreme crisis now that we need to do something that is bad for our long-term interests so that we can address things that are urgent in our short-term interests.
right.
And that, like, maybe sometimes that's true, but you can't have that all of the time, because then your long-term prospects are trashed. So
And some of the learned ones with more experience, they speak correctly, say, let's take it from the military budget. And that's awesome. But you know, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's who's going to allow you to do that? It's not going to happen.
Because the parties are going to fight over the NDAA and they're not going to agree to a decrease in the military's budget. And the only way that a president could reduce the military's budget directly is by vetoing that bill, like vetoing the budget over and over and over again until they put something forward. Like he doesn't get to write bills. The
Well, you know
president
something?
doesn't.
It would be awesome if a president vetoes that bill, and I guarantee you it will be overridden, because you need what, 2/3 to override the veto, or three quarters?
I guess that would be pretty dramatic.
And I almost guarantee you it will happen, because both parties are like.
Because if you got a candidate in the Oval Office with that sort of nerve, you're guaranteed to have a House of Congress and Senate that doesn't agree.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the support. Like, this is one of the sort of frustrating things about the entire notion of a libertarian president, is that they would immediately be at odds with the rest of the government. Like,
exactly.
The rest of the government, the duopoly government, agrees on this stuff, and they collude with one another, and they would team up against you. And so a libertarian president would probably be the least effective president possible. Probably a Green Party president too.
Right.
Because they would be roadblocked by everyone else who didn't want to allow a break in the duopoly.
That's a perfect example of a friend educated me about this issue where there's a difference between the authority and the power to enact that
Uh-huh.
authority. Obama ran since 2006 on closing Guantanamo. And 10 years after, meaning the 2 years before winning presidency and 8 years of presidency, and Guantanamo is not even closed 4 years after he left the office. He had the authority, but he didn't have the power.
Yeah.
They stopped him in every way. So yeah, it doesn't matter who's on top. The head figure is a head figure, basically. Yes, he has power, authority, but not necessarily the power. So, which takes us back.
Well, it's certain powers, though. There are certainly powers that the president has, and we've seen our current president wreck that kind of power in terrible ways because the president can't single handedly do a lot of damage.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean
so
the
it's a
the
weird tensegrity. I don't know. I don't know what the solution to that is. It seems like you have to undermine the system from the bottom more to
right,
have the congressmen and the senators in place before you climb the authority
right,
ladder, you know?
right, right. And the case of the concentration camps on the border, that's what I call them because that's what they are
That's
to
what they
me.
are. Yeah.
So that's an abuse of that power by Trump. But here's the thing: had the Democrats controlled the Senate during the Trump presidency, I think they would have stopped it. But they couldn't because of the Senate is under the Republicans or
Yeah.
the anyway. Um, so yeah, so the current two candidates, main contenders, the likely one of them will be the president, are not talking about the Patriot Act or the National Defense Authorization Act or the concentration camps. I forgot when Biden last mentioned immigration or this, but anyway.
He did, in a sense, he alluded to it in one of the debates when he said that you're breaking up families and it's an egregious crime against humanity or whatever. He tried to get really sort of assertive about how unjust it was that there are these children on the border that are separated from their families and how despicable that is. But like Trump's counter is, yeah, well, you and Obama did it too,
Hmm.
right? And so it's
Exactly.
like that's a perfect retort to Biden, but that's not a solution to the problem.
Right.
Like it's not you and Obama did it too, and I'm not going to do it. It's this is just going to continue. So
Right.
you have both candidates willing to continue that kind of policy.
Exactly. And it's just a testimony, this style of talking, of what a child Trump is.
Oh yeah,
Like,
King baby.
but yeah, but she did it too, like something like that level. Anyway, I forgot if we mentioned this last night, but yeah, I think we did. But it's worth mentioning again since we spoke about Trump and alluded to Hillary. There's this website 270towin.com. The numbers 270towin.com. So they put this study of allocation of the electoral votes, and uh, no scenario of the different allocations would have had Hillary winning the elections. Whether it's proportional or not, there is no potential for Hillary winning in 2016. So I thought this was surprising and, like, to me, and it was worth the note. I see that we have another guest that joined us now. I'll bring him in. Dr. Sheikh Obaid is joining us from Albany, New York. He is the founder or president of the Muslim Peace Coalition, and I'll let him tell us more about himself, and then we'll take it from there. Welcome, Sheikh Obaid.
Thank you, Ram, and sorry for the delay. I got the notice late. Yeah, my name is Sheikh Ubaid, based in Albany, human rights activist and community organizer.
Thank you, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are
Alaikum
you doing?
salam. Davi Barker is a good friend and co-founder of Muslims for Liberty with me, and he wears so many hats. He's an author, he's a graphic designer,
Mashallah.
certified Bitcoin expert, mashallah. So
Mashallah.
that's it. So, Sheikh, I invited you to speak about Muslim issues and the elections. And I don't know if you heard any of the show, but today is the 19th anniversary of the Patriot Act. Um, can you tell us from your experience how this affected the Muslim community and if you've done any work around it before we get to
I
the
mean,
other issues?
as you know, it affected Muslim community tremendously. Both, I mean, in real sense and also in the fear psychosis that it spread. Uh, you know, uh, we know of literally hundreds of families and thousands of people who are affected. So I didn't realize that it's 19 years have passed already.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. It passed after 9/11, shortly
yeah,
after
yeah.
in October. So, anyway, I know you've been working on the Burmese Muslims, the Rohingya, and the Uyghurs, the Chinese Muslims, and other things combating the Hindu nationalism, which is similar in many ways to how the brown shirts and others were working in the previous decades. So tell us from your view, and Davi, please be my co-host. Right,
The opening salvo.
sure. So, what do you see is the most pressing issue, Sheikh, for the Muslim community in this election?
I mean, the most pressing issue is, uh, to make sure that uh, the freedoms, the fundamental freedoms that everybody takes for granted, and which were threatened to a greater extent for the Muslim community, is removed. But in the long term, what is even more important is that we do not get marginalized. That that at least there should be one party that does not take us for granted, and or does not demonize us. Right now, that's not happening. The Republican Party, there is so much Islamophobia, and the Democrats, they know that they think that Muslims are not going to go anywhere, so they take you for granted. And
Hmm.
if that happens, then American Muslims will be in the same position as Muslims in India have become. And it will be in a worse position, because whereas in India you are 13 to 14%, here you are 1% of the population. So that is very important, that we don't allow any party to take us for granted. And the best example is one of the closest races in the country is in Houston, Sugarland area, Texas 22, where you have a sheriff running as a Republican candidate, and on the Democratic side you have Preston Kulkarni, who is heavily funded by RSS, the Hindu extremist party, which you can be called Hindu ISIS, which killed Gandhi, which admires Hitler, which now rules a nuclear power, heavily funded. And in this close race, many Muslims are voting for him, saying that, well, the other guy is a Republican. And RSS is dedicated to disempowering Muslims. They have changed the curriculum in Texas, and also try to do that in California, trying to remove all positive mention of Islam and Muslims in the textbooks. From that level to the same network that is funding Kulkarni has funded candidates who are running against Rashida Tlaib in
Michigan.
Michigan, and Ilhan Umar in Minnesota. So why is this network based out of Houston funding candidates in other parts of the country? So they are completely dedicated to disempowering Muslims and marginalizing them. And their candidate was almost going to win this election when we started this campaign. You know, Getting a Republican win a seat in the House is not going to be as bad, because he will be in a minority party.
Mm.
Whereas Democratic Party, which will be in power in the House, a person dedicated to hurting Muslims can do lots of damage. And Muslims were not thinking in that. They were just having knee-jerk anti-Trump reaction.
Anti-Republican.
Yeah.
So is there something about that campaign that appealed to Muslims for some reason? Like, is there something in his regular platform that made them prefer him?
Because first of all, he's a Democrat. He's a Democrat, first of all, and Muslims were sick of Islamophobia, especially in Texas. And then he worked. I mean, he ran in 2018 and came quite close. He lost by 5 percentage point, and Texas is becoming more and more purple. And this is the second most diverse constituency. So they chose the constituency very well. And this guy, for the last 2 years, has been going to the mosque, praying inside the mosque, and then he got the Muslim elite, who are not very much into human rights and all that, invested in him. So they don't want to back up at the last minute. And the young volunteers were focused more on, not as much as GOP, but as Trump. So this is not only Republican, but it's Trump's Republican Party that they were against. And in that, it was going to be because he had given up a seat. His job was in the Foreign Service, and he was portraying himself as a Foreign Service expert, even though he had a low-level job, but he was embellishing his resume. That's something else. But he was trying to, the RSS was trying to put him for the running in a couple of years for the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, where Elliot Ingalls from Westchester was recently defeated in the primaries. And that's a very important post. And India, which is committing a huge pogrom in Kashmir and also all over India, would not be taken to task if he was there in the Foreign Relations Committee, especially the chairman of it.
So this is a very interesting case where you have the Muslims between the Hindu extremist supported candidate versus a Trump Republican candidate.
Yep.
And they are siding with the Hindu extremist supported candidate.
Yeah. And you have other candidates, for example, in both parties. For example, Radha Krishna Murthy openly takes money from the RSS candidates. He goes and attends celebrations where the RSS founders' anniversaries are celebrated with his pictures. I mean, this is the guy who praised Holocaust and Hitler, but he goes there and he cuts away. Padma Kupa, a state legislator in Michigan, and then from the Republican side, you have Antony in Dayton and Manga in the Virginia area, and the guy who's challenging Ro Khanna want to punish him because Ro said that I'm a Hindu, but I'm not a Hindutva. Hindutva is a Hindu supremacist ideology, like ISIS type. So they are all over, and they are the fastest growing Islamophobic group, very well educated, lots of money, and they know how to play the game.
Well, it sounds like they're trying to buy influence. Is there any indication that they're succeeding? Like, are these candidates making statements in line with their ideology?
They are not succeeding in that aspect that they are, for example, they will gang up with others or not to allow a resolution about Kashmir to come and be discussed. Those kind of, because they are still in a few, but they are slowly. But then, even more importantly, they have very high positions in both campaigns. Amit Jani, who is one of the top campaign managers of Biden campaign, doing the reach out at one time to Muslims also. But when there was lots of hue and cries, Biden, instead of firing him, just removed the Muslim community from him. But he's doing outreach to Asia Pacific community. I mean, it's a huge community that he's doing. And then Sonal Shah, who was nominated for a cabinet position by Joe Biden and by Obama, and we had launched a campaign forced her to retract her name. She is now a top, has a top position in Biden campaign, and you have others in Trump's campaign as well.
Interesting. So, I mean, okay, so this is an issue that we have some candidates on that level, and I need to put a disclaimer just to calm some people down. We are talking specifically about extremist ideology by some who are consider themselves to be Hindu. We're not talking about all Hindus. We're talking about a specific group with extremist ideology that's trying to
Yeah.
buy influence and fielding those candidates.
That's why moderate Hindus, for example, Hindus for Human Rights, have taken a very robust stand against them. And, but at one time, there were no challenge to that. And they had heavily used the image of Gandhi and India as the largest democracy, even though they are the people who killed Gandhi. So they have been working for more than 30 years, on this plan. So they have made allies, and it's very hard for people now to all of a sudden say that, you know, um, fortunately for us, ISIS and Al Qaeda had not been so cunning. So these
Hmm,
people are as extremist and as brutal, but they have been very cunning.
hmm,
So in India they celebrate the anniversary of Gandhi's assassin Godse, and here they garland the Gandhi statues. So that has been,
hmm,
and the moderate Hindu community is in the forefront in fighting them, as are the Sikh community, the Christian community, the Dalits, who are treated in the caste apartheid as the untouchable, the lowest tier of system, and of course Muslims. So there is a broad coalition who is resisting them.
hmm. So this RSS is an organization in India or it's here in the United States?
It's an international organization. It's U.S. affiliate. I mean, international affiliates are called HSS. So if you go to hss.org, or you go to our website, the Alliance is a very self-explanatory alliance. It's called Alliance to Save and Protect America from Infiltration by Religious Extremists. So Aspire, ASPAIRE.org. So if you go there, you will have all the reports and uh, you know I mean reports from very reputable human rights associations, and from Hindus for Human Rights and others. They are talking about them.
Okay. So what else do you see happening in this election cycle? Do you see that Biden is better than Trump?
Domestically, Biden will be better than Trump because the rule of law, I mean, he's a consummate politician, establishment guy, insiders. I mean, they're not, but at least where people were openly talking about, taking away the rights of one community or the other, or many minority communities, etc. So that uh, political acceptance, it will be harder, so but in the foreign policy, I don't think there will be any change. Domestically, Biden will be better. And they made sure that both the candidates are political insiders, because if something happens to Biden, being his age a factor, then Kamala Harris is the same type of candidate.
Hmm,
But the other side is worse, so we are sort of stuck, I think.
hmm. So our best case scenario is to return to the disastrous Obama presidency style.
Yeah, but at the national level, there is no option. But Obama has not been as bad as Trump. Uh, we should
Why do
we are
you
when
say
when
so? Like, what tangible things can we say? Because we can say that, yeah, because of the rhetoric of Trump. But what did actually Trump do in comparison to Obama that makes Trump worse?
Trump himself did not do. Actually, I think Trump was a good thing for Muslims, because that hatred that is there became more evident where Muslims were not paying any attention. And they should see, we are all human beings. I mean, human beings all over the world have the same wiring. I being a neurologist, and with behavioral neurology being my interest, we all. So if you take anywhere, I mean, the Palestinians and Jordanians in Jordan will have a conflict. The Afghanis and Pakistanis, these are all Muslim communities. In India, in Bombay or Mumbai, which is called, a Hindu organization rose to power against other Hindus, saying that Maharashtrians are losing their majority. So when the white majority after 2010, at the I was representing Muslim Peace Coalition at an anti-war conference, and that was the first year when there were more non-white babies born in America than white, and the trend was going to continue, and it's continuing. So it's very normal for human beings to feel a little uneasy, especially if you're not highly educated about the need for immigration and all that. And at that time, I said that any demagogue can America can rise, and what Milosevic did in Yugoslavia and Shiv Sena does in Bombay, that can happen. And Trump happened to be that guy. And all these blue collar white people who are hurt by Trump's policies are the one feeling threatened by, the browning of America who are supporting him. So that becoming politically acceptable is a bad thing, because it's very hard to put those feelings back. It took a long time in America, starting 60s, to make such speech unacceptable. But then it started with Muslims, when there were lots of GOP candidates, including Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum, who'd openly say, I mean, frankly, Islamophobic things about Muslims, knowingly. There's no creeping Sharia. You are less than 1%. Even if all the Muslims want to impose Sharia, it's not going to happen. And Muslims don't want that, and Sharia is not what they portray it to be. But they would not do it against African Americans or Hispanics. Or that Trump came and he started doing it to other people, and that's when there was a reaction, and everybody in America started talking about this being a bad thing. When Muslims were being the target, nobody gave a damn. If I can use that language here.
So, Davi, let me ask you the same question. What tangible things that Trump did that makes him worse than Obama, if you see it that way?
What tangible things? Well, the handling of the pandemic is pretty outrageous. Like to have abolished the task force that was supposed to deal with it, to have I think I don't know necessarily that Trump has even accomplished very much from a policy perspective. And I think to some extent the war on terror was largely tapped down by the pandemic itself. I think that a lot like Al Qaeda and ISIS and these groups, I think they even put out a statement that said that they were going to cease operations for the pandemic. So it's that has not been the area of national influence. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. But as far as Trump's impact, I feel like it is much more cultural than policy. That Trump has given license to a generation of people to express an ideology that maybe they were keeping hidden in their hearts or whatever, and not speaking at the dinner table, and now suddenly they have national organizations and public rallies and YouTube channels, and I feel like he has let loose something that was contained culturally, and that is very dangerous. But also he seems incompetent. I don't think that I've heard a competent statement from him as a politician in his entire presidency. It's hard to even figure out what he's saying most of the time. So as far as what has worked or not worked, I think that most of the economic boom that Trump has taken credit for is probably the result of Obama's presidency. They say that most economic phenomenon follow the administration. They're not the product of the current administration. So yeah, I mean, the thing is with Obama, it's the criticisms of him are clear because they're so egregious, right? There are things like killing extrajudiciously assassinating a U.S. citizen. There are things like drone strikes. There are things that stand out because they're out of character. Right. Whereas with Trump, it's all in character.
Right. Okay. So, Sheikh Abed, in a minute, give us your last words, and we'll have you again, of course, to speak about all other issues that we couldn't do in this hour.
Thank you again. Sorry I got the late notice. So
no, that's fine.
I mean, this is a very important election, again, because of the license that Trump gave to hatred. And if the hatred continues, when it becomes second nature and becomes acceptable, then it will be very hard, because the demographics are changing. So next 30, 40 years before the white community comes to terms with it psychologically, that nothing is going to change. America will remain America. It will change culturally and color-wise. So during that time, any demagogue, and Trump, being Trump, which is narcissism, has gone very far making this acceptable politically. So to get him out of, and in this two-party system, which we see to be in existence for some time to come, which is, I don't think is a really good thing for America. Maybe after he's gone, the Republican Party, the quote-unquote moderates in that will try to take the party back, and we will have some semblance of rule of law, and the constitutional rights that are guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. If they are there, then we can try to have some alternate, political means, political other parties to take care of our problems.
I think this will break the Republican Party in two. The extremists will go by themselves and form a different movement, but we'll see. Dr. Sheikh Obaid, thank you very much for joining me on very short notice. We'll have you again soon, inshallah. Davi Barker, thank you so much again for agreeing to be my co-host in this series until the election. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's episode from Vantage Points. There are hashtags and there is a hashtag. This is the hashtag. Take care, America.
Take care. Thank you.